Welcome, golfers, to the next episode of the Read It, Roll It, Hole It podcast. Today, we have got a real special guest on the show, Ted Scott, all the way from USA. How are you, Ted?
Doing wonderful, Ali. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you today, Ted. You are a caddy on the European Tour, or even PGA Tour, should I say. You've caddied for many good golfers. The three I have here is Azinger, Bubba Watson for 15 years, and Scottie Scheffler. Is that right at the moment? Scheffler? I can't even say it. You'll come to realize that my spelling and pronunciations are pretty poor.
That's fine. It's all good. I'm what we call a Cajun, which is South Louisiana and over here, and they say we can't talk, so it's fine. We'll get along just fine.
We'll be all right. Happy days. We've just had a friendly chat beforehand, and we're both good friends with Mark Bull, who's one of the coolest cats in the world. I think I'll kick off there. Like, I asked Mark for a question for you, who I know he sort of regards you well. That's part of his question, really, was what is it like being Mark Bull's hero?
Yeah. Well, the thing I love about Mark Bull is he's always flattering me, and I don't know if he's flattering everyone, but I sure do feel good around him. You know, he's a great man, and I spent, probably one time with him in March of 2000 or 2020, I guess, right before the pandemic hit, and I was just like, man, this guy's so cool and so knowledgeable, and just really kind, loving, caring person who also has tremendous golf knowledge, loves to help people. I was like, man, I need to spend more time with this dude. So if anybody's a golf hero and friend hero, it'd be opposite. He would be mine. So
definitely, he's one of life's good guys, that's for sure, is Mark. But anyway, we don't want to sort of give him a big head and talk about him for too long. So let's move on. So, okay, Ted, I really want to go down the sort of Bubba relationship. You were with Bubba for 15 years. That's a long ass time. How do you carry the same person's bag for such a long period of time?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun, honestly, to caddy for Bubba. He's, one of those guys that he can hit any golf shot, and in some golf shots you don't know that he can hit, which makes it a lot of fun to be on the bag. You kind of, every day you show up and you're probably going to see something that you didn't realize that you were going to see that day. And it's incredible. I would say he's one of the greatest painters in the world, and you get to carry his brushes, so it's like, sweet, man, I have no idea what kind of brush he's going to use here, but this will be fun. So that's certainly a big part of it. Obviously it's fun to caddy for a great player too. Bubba, 12 wins, 2 Masters, 2 World Golf Championships, 6 teams. It's like, man, that's why we do this, to compete. And he's a great competitor, a great champion. And then Bubba and I are similar personalities. He likes to cut up and have a lot of fun off the course. And then probably the greatest thing about caddying for Bubba Watson is he doesn't practice. I mean, literally, the guy does not practice. He's just a freak talent. And so for me, that's great because I love to go play golf. So he'll go play 9 holes on Tuesday in the morning, and I have the whole day. And then we usually play early pro-am on Wednesday. And then one other day, an early day, like Thursday or Friday, we have an early tee time. So I usually have about 3 afternoons to go find some great golf course to try to get on. And I have a great line. If you ever want to try to get on a good golf course, I use this line all the time. You might want to use it.
Write this down.
Yes, and you're definitely, your users, your listeners are going to want to use this. Trust me, it works amazing. I just say,
hi, my
name is Ted Scott. I caddy for Bubba Watson. And listen, my good friend Tiger Woods told me to never name drop, so I don't do that. But anyway, I was looking to see if I could come out to your course today and play some golf. So it works every time.
Every single time. I love it.
Yeah, you just start dropping names, and we'll say like, oh, Dustin Johnson's caddy might come, and this person, they love it, man. They bring you on. No, it's fun. We have a good time.
I can already see that you, the personality in there certainly, certainly helps. And I can see where Mark loves you so much. The sort of thing you mentioned there, the painting, that was something I was going to come on to, but let's go to it now. Like, that guy must see the shot before it happens, painting the picture, like different to anyone else in the world? I say anyone, that might not be fair. There might be a few artists. Sevi, it maybe is one of those. But has he ever explained to you perhaps what exactly he's seeing or tries to? And can you share that with us?
Yeah, he doesn't like straight. As a kid, he learned to play golf with what we call a wiffle ball. I don't know if it's called the same thing in the UK, but it's like a little small plastic golf ball with holes in it. So you can't hit it far and it curves a lot. And so he would try to see how few shots he could get around his house in his yard. And he started to realize if he curved it, it would take less shots to get around the house. So he would just, as a kid, go out in the yard and curve it around this way and then curve it around that way. And that's how he learned how to play. So whenever he would play and try to hit a straight shot, he didn't like it. It didn't feel as comfortable. So he sees curves. And being that this is a putting podcast, it's really funny. One time we had a very important putt for probably like 6 or 7 feet. And he said, "What do you see?" And of course, anytime you call your caddy in, it's a straight putt. If the pro can't see the break, then it's like, oh, it's straight. They're trying to figure out. It's like, is this pool table unlevel? It's like, it's pretty hard to find, but it probably is. So anyway, I gets me in to read this putt, and I said, "It's straight." He goes, "Come on, man, give me something. Left center, right center." And I just started laughing because it was a pretty big moment, and it was funny to have him, one, kind of break the tension with that, but then two, that was true to his character. He just didn't even like straight putts. It's like, give me some kind of picture I can get attached to. Straight's too boring for Bubba.
And did he go into like that visualization process of like what he sees? Or does he just see his house for every shot and like figure out which part of the house he's on? Or
well, I told you I wouldn't name drop, but my good friend Mark Bull once told me that to be childlike in your learning process, and that's probably Bubba's greatest asset is he's very childlike. And so what I mean by that is, I do golf coaching, you do golf coaching, so we dive into the analytics of why somebody does something and how they do it and how do they approach it and how can I get that information to the next guy. Bubba doesn't dive into any of the analytics. He just literally putts and lets the feedback be his coach. And so all of his putting knowledge is from experience, memory, feel, and there's no, is this 2 inches or 3 inches? I remember last time his putt was this. It's just, this looks like it's going to go here. So everything he does is visual, feel. And I think that, in my experience, most of the greatest putters, now I think with aim point, that's changed some of that, but most of the greatest putters in history were more feel, almost artistic type players. And Bubba certainly fits into that. And the one thing about Bubba was he was not a very good slow green putter. He's a tremendous fast green putter, but his pace is such a barely fall in the front edge that when the greens would get slow, I mean, outside of 10 feet, he could barely get it to the hole.
Interesting. Why do you think that is, that he's better at sort of seeing it on faster putts than slower ones?
I think it's a little bit, Bubba's, this isn't me spilling the beans, but he's a high anxiety person. He's got a lot of anxiety, and he's shared a lot of that stuff. And so for him, I think when the ball would get rolling past the hole, his anxiety would go up. So he would just try to hit it softer where he felt like, hey, if it doesn't go in, at least I can tap it in. And so he just sees putts, really, really likes really fast greens where he can just kind of touch it and kind of feel it. Whereas when you're hitting a putt hard, it kind of takes away some of the feel. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely. That's interesting. On the anxiety part of Bubba, I think, as you said, he has, sort of openly sort of talks about it, and we all have levels of anxieties that fluctuate every day. When he was, I don't know, off on the golf course, and like it could be his anxieties or something's happened, how did you manage the shit days? Do you know what I mean? What was he like? Was he like an arse or not really? Like, do you know what I mean? Talk us through, and how did you, what strategies did you give him or try and use to help him in that?
Yeah, well, I think, I've always had a philosophy in my life that if you want to get better at something, you find people who are better than you and you spend time with them. And so I ask a lot of questions. I spend time around a lot of really smart people, caddies, coaches, players. One of my favorite people I met is Jim Murphy. He's coached a lot of guys on the tour from the mental side. And, Jim talks a lot about anxiety and fear is time travel. And so what is time travel? That just means that your mind is not present. You're traveling to either the future or the past. Oh, last time I had this putt, I pulled it. Yeah. What if I miss it? I don't win the tournament. Those are both time travel. So you have to figure out, usually anxiety and fear is created from being somewhere besides where you are right now. And one of the tricks that Jim uses that I think is great is, what's the first 3 sounds that you hear? Oh, I hear a bird chirping, that guy walking on the cart path, and a car just drove by. Now that's all present. Here you are, you're right here again, instead of like, whoa, what if this, what if that? So, there's all kinds of little mind tricks you try to do as a caddy for your player when you recognize that he's being fearful or, anxious. And it could be just reminding him, dude, do you realize you're 7th in the world? I remember we were paired with Webb Simpson in the President's Cup in Melbourne. And I think he might've been the highest ranked player in the field at the time. And he was nervous over a putt. And that's what Bubba said. He goes, do you realize who's the highest ranked player in this field? And Webb didn't know. He's like, no. He goes, it's you. So just relax, dude. You're the best player here, And sometimes you have to remind even the greatest players in certain moments, man, it's just a 4-foot putt and you're great at this, So I think ultimately it's like, if you have a friend that's scared to get on a roller coaster, how do you convince them they're not going to die? And it's scary, but you need to go and do it anyway. You're going to enjoy it, And that's a lot of the fulfillment that we get as golfers when we have a putt to win $5 from our friend, or if you're on the PGA Tour or the European Tour and you have a putt to win $1 million, it's still the same anxiety and fear and worries and stress. But really, if you ask me, Ali, the whole reason why we do it is because it actually makes us feel present. If you think about when you're on a roller coaster, Ali, what you don't feel is pain and suffering from, my mom's got cancer, I got some bills I can't pay, I just lost my job. You're in the moment. And the adrenaline rush that you get when you're nervous, is why we do it. But then when we get in the moment, now we start time traveling. And it's like, well, the whole reason why you love this is because it makes you feel present. And then we get there and now we're like, well, what if I miss the putt? Now you're taking away the experience. So really what we should be doing is being like, dude, how fun is this that I get to hit this 5-footer and try to beat my buddy out of $5? Like, I get to try this. This is so cool. I get to try to make this putt for $1 million, but the problem is the world will judge you and give you an identity based upon your result. And that's really not why we do it, in my opinion. Like, I've been caddying for 21 years. I've seen a lot of miserable champions and I've seen a lot of very happy champions. And why is that? What's the difference? Is it the result? No, it's letting yourself be defined by the result, and that's where, when you're defined by the result, then you time travel. When you just step up like a guy that just likes to compete and can accept whatever people think and whatever happens on outcome, then you truly get to enjoy the moment. It's like, hey, this is fun. This is what I do this for. This is exciting. And I think people that really love to compete, they just love the feeling, the Phil Mickelsons, the Tigers, the Colin Morikawa, this new guy, Dustin Johnson, the guys that just, they can hit the worst shot you've ever seen and still be okay with it. It's like, how do they do that? It's because they love being in the moment, they fall in love with it. So you have to train your mind to be like, this is not life and death. It's just, how awesome is this that I get to be here right now doing this task? It's so cool, And once you get that mindset, now you can truly be free, in my opinion, to give your best athletic, try at it.
Brilliant. No, that's good. And is Bubba a happy or unhappy champion?
Bubba is extremely happy. He's one of the happiest people I've ever met.
Why?
Bubba's he's a whiner on the golf course. As we could see, it's like, what is that? How does the putt go left? Oh, mud ball, the fun stuff that we've seen. But, that's just what everybody's thinking. And Bubba it comes out of his mouth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the quiet guy is thinking the same thing. He's frustrated that he got a bad bounce. He's got mud on his ball. Nobody likes mud on their ball, but Bubba just verbalizes it. So he seems like he's frustrated out there, but he has a ton of fun. And his probably greatest quality as a golfer is he could shoot 80, which doesn't happen very often. And literally the second he signs his scorecard, he's cutting up and telling jokes, and he just has this ability like I've never seen to not sulk or be like, oh man, I can't believe I missed that putt and we didn't win, or this didn't happen. Or he just, all right, let's move on. Really, it's a really cool way to live your life, and I think that's why he's been so good for so long with not a lot of practice.
Helpful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's God-given or if it's something he worked on, but it's impressive. I mean, he could be angry as a hornet on the last hole for missing a putt, sign his scorecard and be the happiest dude in the world. And you're kind of like, what? How did that transform? And that's just who he is,
Yeah. Brilliant. That's great to hear. What's the sort of the biggest sort of frustrating challenge you've had sort of mentally on the course with Bubba?
Well, in 2010, his dad was dying of cancer.
Okay.
And Bubba was, a great player, but he hadn't won yet. He'd played 3 years on the Korn Ferry Tour, and this was his 4th year on the PGA Tour without a win. And I think he knew he was good enough to win, and he really wanted to win before his dad passed away. So there was a lot of stress. Every shot was life and death, literally, in his mind. And so that was a very tough thing to deal with. Sometimes as a caddy, and this is what people don't realize often, a lot of these players, when they're struggling, it's something going on in their life.
Yeah.
We think it's golf, but it's like maybe they're having problems at home or something. So there's a lot of stress. And so as a caddy, sometimes you're the outlet, which is not fun. But if you know the person, which I knew Bubba very well at the time, because I've been working for him for several years, you grow to love them. You're like, you know what, just like your family, my mom's not perfect, my dad's not perfect, my wife's not perfect, I'm not perfect, but you love them through their flaws. And when other people see only something bad happen, they just, oh, that guy's a jerk or this or that. So 2010, I mean, there was a lot of rough moments because he really wanted to win for his dad. And then when we won the Masters in 12, Graham McDowell's caddy Ken came up to me and told me, he said, hey, get ready for about a year of hell. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, trust me, the first major hangover is very rough. And it really was, because Ali, there's so much noise that gets added to the experience, and it's so distracting. And if you're not prepared for it, as Bubba wasn't, and maybe Graham wasn't either, it's strange and stressful. There's so much opportunity and expectations and stress and distractions and people. So 2013 was a very tough year as well. Just dealing with all of that. And it was hard on me, but it was hard on Bubba. So because it's hard on him, I wasn't angry with him for being hard on me, because I recognize he's just trying to learn how to deal with it. It's like, hey, sometimes I come home and I have a bad day and I treat my kids unkindly, right? I'm like, go to your room or whatever, and it's not warranted. And you realize, man, that's not the right thing to do. You have to apologize, but your kids still love you because they recognize, dad's just having a bad day. And that's, hopefully they forgive me when I do that. And, I certainly forgave Bubba for the times that happened, but overall in 15 years, it was an amazing run. And, I wouldn't change anything.
Superb to hear that mindset. And the journey ended middle to the end of last year. Was that a mutual thing? Why was that?
Yeah. So, we just kind of had some talks about, hey, where are you going? Where am I going? And honestly, I wasn't planning on caddying anymore. I was pretty much, I talked to my family and I was just kind of was saying, all right, I think I'm just going to hang it up. 21 years, had a good career. And I was going to go more into full-time teaching, because it's something that I'm real passionate about. And Bubba was kind of like, I'm not sure if, how much I want to play, where I want to play, what I want to do. So it's just, what, I'm going to take a break from caddying and kind of just reassess where I want to go with my life. And I think he was doing the same. And then, a couple months in, I got a call from Scottie Scheffler, and, I really super guy, young player. I think when he called me, he was like 20th in the world, just kind of has a lot of promise. And I just basically presented it to my family. I said, look, here's an opportunity. What do y'all think? We prayed about it for about a week. They decided they wanted me to take the opportunity. I said, okay, let's pray about it for another week. We did it for another week and came back again. And I said, what do y'all think? And I let them have the decision. It wasn't me. I was my family. So I'm not sure if that's a good thing, Ollie, because maybe they were like, let's get this guy out of here.
Yeah.
Get him back on the road.
We don't want him at home again. Bloody hell, get rid of him.
That's right. It's like maybe my wife was secretly calling players and agents, hey, can we get this guy a job, get him out of here? So but yeah, so it's really nice that my family, you know, supports me like that. So it's been a fun thing to do so far.
New player, new challenges. What's sort of come up with Scottie? Obviously he's playing well and doing well, so that helps.
Yeah, you know what, Scottie's he's a really, really great dude, and he's a hard worker, so I'm not used to that. I mean, that sucks for me, you know, having to sit out there on the range and watch.
By the way, caddying's really hard work, isn't it? I've done it once. Oof. And she missed the cut, thank God, because I don't kind of made it through the weekend.
Yeah, that's right. People have no idea how, you know, people are like, oh, so you carry a bag for a living? It's like, no, I carry a 200-pound man for a living is what you really do. You carry all his emotions and stress. That's usually how it goes. But no, seriously, you know, it's just different because every person's unique, right? You know, we're all different as individuals, and Bubba was just a freak talent. The game of golf was physically so easy for him. He showed up every day and like, what kind of shot you want to see? And he had it. I mean, he never went through a long period where it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. The game was easy. The mental part was hard, you know? And so when with my new player, it's like, you know, he's super talented, but he's a worker. It's like, if he gets a little off, it's like, all right, let's go practice. Let's figure this out. And then he wants a lot more information, you know. Bubba, you know, it'd be like, hey, you want to hit some out of this bunker? Nope. You know, I'm probably not going to be in that bunker. And if I am, so what? You know, I wasn't trying to go in there. Well, Scottie's like, hey, let's see if this bunker's okay. What about over there? You know, so it's a lot more strategy and things like that, which is fun. You know, it gets me a lot more involved. So I'm really enjoying it. It's certainly just a different challenge. And, you know, my only disappointing thing about this job is I won't be playing golf 3 times a week, you know, so
yeah,
but it's a good thing. You know, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Nice. And that strategy you mentioned, does he have a system like a decade, or like is it like based on just experience? Talk us through like going to a golf course. So I don't know, you're coming over to St. Andrews this year, but you've been there before, but I don't know, just talk us through what that strategy is.
Yeah, well, you know, just anytime you're walking a golf course, you know, you're looking at, hey, what's the weather going to be like? What's the wind direction? How firm is the greens? Where could they put the pins? You know, you're basically just trying to ask a good question. And when you ask a good question, then that demands an answer, right? Okay. So when we're looking at a course, you're just thinking, okay, if they put the pin here, what's that bunker like? Is that bunker playable? Is it not playable? And if there's some doubt, you know, sometimes you're like, yeah, that's dead. Obviously, you know, that's no good. But sometimes you might say, I think it's okay. And then you throw a few balls in there, and then you get in there and there's not enough sand. Well, now it's a hard bunker shot because there's not enough sand to get under it, or there's too much sand, which makes it hard, you know, whatever. So, or man, that rough doesn't look that bad, or, oh, left is fine. And then you get over there and it's real likely to roll into an unsettled spot of grass. And now the chip is much harder. So the preparation work for a guy like Scottie is kind of checking the boxes. You know, I remember we played the Bahamas at the Hero tournament, and we hit it over the 18th green on one of the rounds, and he putted it from there, which he normally is. He's a great chipper, and he putted it. And he said, I'm so glad that we practiced this shot on the practice round, and I knew to putt it because it was such a grainy chip shot. Even a world-class chipper, it was really hard to make good contact. He had like 3 chips and maybe duffed 2 of them, not because he couldn't do it. It's just, that's how hard the turf was to make good contact. And then just to putt it, it rolled through there real nice. So he's like, yeah, if I hit it over the green, I'm going to putt it. Well, we did it in the tournament, and he putted it up to 2 feet, made his par. And he goes, man, I'm so glad we did that. So that's the kind of preparation where, you know, maybe what's the right choice, you know? So you're just trying to solve the puzzle, you know, kind of like you as a putting coach, right? You find someone that needs help, and you're trying to get a picture of what they look like. What's the picture? I say it when I coach, it's like a car mechanic, right? You know, I want to know when you come in, tell me about your car. What's it sound like? What's it doing when you're driving down the road? So then I can start looking how to solve the problem. And that's all we're doing in golf is every shot we have is a problem to be solved. And I think that's why it's such an attractive game, because you never solve it. You know, I love what Dr. Bull says about, you know, people come to him all the time and say, I want to be more consistent. And he goes, well, what's that? You know, because when are you going to have a 150-yard 8-iron? You're not. You know, there's no such thing as a 150-yard 8-iron. Oh, yes, there is. Oh, no, there's not, because the pin's on the left, the pin's on the right, the wind's down, the wind's in, the lie's good, the ball's above your feet, the ball's below your feet. You don't feel good. You're stressed. You're nervous. What if you win? What if you lose? It's never just a 150-yard 8-iron. So the game itself doesn't present consistency. So it's like, yeah, that's really not something that we do. We're always problem solving. You know, today I'm hooking it, tomorrow I'm fading it. Like, dang, I got to figure this thing out. So when you're preparing for the course, it's no different. You're just trying to figure out what could come up and how would you solve it. You know, that's what you're looking at.
Brilliant. That's good. Know the new rules of like not being able to take the old information course guides onto new. How's that going to affect you at all? Like I saw Billy Foster getting rid of like hundreds of them the other day. Is that like a, you know, with your experience, is that a bad thing for someone who's experienced? Do you know what I mean?
Yes and no. If you can remember how you gained the experience, it's not a bad thing. But if you can't, it's a problem, because the way the rule states is, if you looked at a greens book and said, oh, that's a 3% slope away from that bunker, so therefore it's short-sighted, and I write that down like, hey, don't get in that bunker because it's 3% away. Well, now I've used information that I'm not allowed to bring forward to the present. But if I looked at it with my eyeballs, or my pro got in there and hit some shots and it rolls out really fast, and I said, that's not a good place to be, it's okay to transfer that information going forward. So, you know, there is a lot of gray area in that. And it does kind of stink because, you know, like for me at Augusta, it's good news because I've never had a greens book there and I only have experience. So I can transfer, you know, I usually have about 5 books at Augusta, believe it or not. I mean, I got all these pretty much, you know, I'm not going to tell you exactly what I do because I don't want people to know, but I have a lot of notes that I take and how I take them.
Can you give us some little nuggets? Come on. I want to know a little bit about Augusta.
You just write down experience, you know, your experiences of what you've seen, and you write it down in your book. You know, I saw this, so therefore I'm going to take a note of that. And that's stuff that because I experienced it, I can transfer that into my new book. But if I was to be out there with, let's say, like a level, you know, which you can't do at Augusta, or a greens book, you know, then you're not allowed to. So it has to be from experience, not some sort of technology, you know, and that's what they're trying to get away from. So I'm a fan of that. You know, I was one of the people that I'm all for very old school, you know, putting. I was always a great putter growing up, and I feel like I've been able to help some of my players become better at putting. And for me, I was a fan of that. You know, it's like, hey, let's get rid of the greens book and go back to the skill of reading putts, you know, and whether it's going to change who's a great putter or not, you know, time will tell. But, you know, I think it's a good thing because it makes you work a little harder as a caddy. It makes you work a little harder as a pro. You know, before, these green books are so detailed that I could just literally just be like, yeah, don't hit it in that bunker. It's 3% slope away from it. You know, you're not gonna be able to, if the pin's 4 from that bunker, you can't get it close. Well, now I got to actually go and think about it, look at it, maybe have my pro hit a ball. And if somebody's not doing that prep work, then you have an advantage, right? But if you can just buy a greens book for $100, now you don't have to have that prep work. It's a lot easier. It's like, oh, I can just look at the book and tell. So I like that because it makes the guys that work harder possibly get an advantage, you know?
Yeah. No, happy days. Did you used to buy them then?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because it's like an advantage, right? Yeah, I was going to say
100%. It's like my son plays video games and people use cheat codes. I'm like, bro, if everybody's cheating, you better be cheating or you can't compete, you know? It's like, I'm not a fan of cheating, but I'm like, if this guy's buying one and it's legal, they call it a cheat code and it's legal to use. I'm like, well, then you can't beat this guy. He's using something that, you know? So it's like, hey, but I'm a huge fan of getting rid of them, you know. And my friend Mark Long he's a close friend of mine. He's the one that makes the book, so it's bad for his pocketbook. But I'm a huge fan of getting rid of that stuff and going back to eyeballs and feel and aim point, you know, and training yourself to be a great putter, you know.
Yeah, I think it's great for aim point. I think it's good.
Oh, it's going to make so many more people are going to be doing that. I even know a couple of top caddies that went and got trained over the off season in aim point, because it's like they depended so heavily on the book, and now it's gone. It's like, oh, well, now what do I do? I need to get a skill, which is good. It's like, hey, they're investing in a new skill, which is amazing.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Ted, I'm really conscious of the time. I know you're going to the course now. So tell me today, what's that going to look like? You've got up bright and early to talk to me. You've obviously, you're up and ready, raring to go. He's like live as a button. It's not even 7 o'clock yet in the morning.
Well, I'm on 2 hour different. I'm sorry. I'm on a 2 hour different time zone. So, I'm still, my body's accustomed to being back in Louisiana. So, it's, I'm just waking up early. I'm the old guy here now. I can go to bed at 9 o'clock and get up at 5. That's me. Now it's my new life. So it's really not that early. It's probably 9 o'clock at home. But yeah, I'll go have some breakfast here shortly. And then I'll just kind of go look at the pin sheet and look at my notes of, hey, the pin's tucked near this bunker, like we talked about. I got to be mindful of that and look at the wind direction. So, okay, it's downwind on this tee shot. We got to probably hit 2 iron because, it's going to go too far if we hit 3 wood, which is what we hit in the practice round. You're kind of preparing for the storm before it happens, but you really don't know what the storm's going to be like. You're just trying to speculate and kind of get a strategy in your head. And as a caddy, I think sometimes I don't know Scottie that well yet, but if with Bubba, I would be like, okay, I really need to fight for this club or fight for this strategy on this hole, because I know he's going to want to do something and it's not in his best interest, And so you might almost be preparing a speech, like it's like a debate or like a lawyer getting ready to go to trial, and you're saying, okay, I got to have my points sharp and ready because we don't have a lot of time, and I got to present this picture in a way that's clear, and he's ready to hear it and he's going to buy into it because, we talked about this in the practice round, but I know when he gets there, he's going to be nervous. It's going to be thinking cloudy and probably going to try to change the strategy. And I got to know we're doing this, so that's the kind of stuff you're doing. It's just, you're just trying to prepare, but you never know. I mean, there's a time where you have to just let your horse run, and let them do stupid stuff sometimes that they pull off, because they're great players for that reason. They like to go for it. They like to, we as caddies, I think a lot of times are conservative, and these pros are like, I can hit that shot. Like, yeah, 1 out of 10, but in their mind, they hit it 10 out of 10. That's why they're so good. We're more realistic. They're more, I can pull off anything I want. You're like, not really, but you want them to believe that. So it's an interesting combo, it really is.
10th at the Masters, one of those moments where you're like, come on, just chip it out, Bubba, and get up and down from the fairway. No, I can see this shot, hooking this wedge around a 40-yard tree.
Yeah, so Ollie, the greatest shot I've ever seen Bubba Watson hit by far was at the Masters, but it wasn't on hole 10. And it was the same year. It was on Friday on hole 11. And so it's the greatest shot I've ever seen in my entire life. And I argued with him so much that he told me, pretty much, he said, just shut up, go over there and let me do what I want to do. That's kind of how the conversation went. And I was mad as a hornet when I walked away, and he hit this shot, and I couldn't believe, I didn't think it was possible, not humanly possible. I mean, the shot on 10 at Augusta in the playoff was very possible. I had seen him do that a bunch of times. I wasn't worried about that. I was like, oh, he can definitely pull this one off. The shot on 11, I still don't believe he pulled it off, and I still don't think it's possible, but I saw it.
Brilliant. Good stuff. Yeah. So you'll do the prep beforehand, have a bit of scrambled eggs. What's the breakfast? Eggs?
Yeah, I'm more of a over medium type guy, 2 eggs over medium with some avocado toast,
Nice.
Get some good fats in there, so try to get some brain power.
And then get on the course, and you meet him there then? Is that how it works?
Yeah. Well, I'll meet him there. He'll go get stretched, in the trailers or whatever. And then he's about an hour warm-up guy. So he'll putt for a while and then go hit balls and then come back and putt a few more and then head off to the first.
His clubs?
I'm sorry?
Who's got his clubs?
Oh, he's keeping them with him. A lot of times they'll have bag storage, but we're playing 3 courses this week. So he's taking them with him, because we got to go to 3 different places. So
you'll just meet him an hour before tee time at this spot.
That's it. Yeah.
Nice.
Head to the putting green and start trying to be like you, man. Putt, get all the secrets down. Start putting it in the hole.
Putt with freedom. Love it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
let me share something with you if you want. I know it's a putting podcast. I'll give you a nugget that I think is brilliant. You know, when I worked my first 3 years on tour, I worked for Grant Waite, and Grant, you know, he struggled with putting at times. And one of the things that we did was we would go and we would talk to the best putters in the world, you know, and I'm saying, hey, let's go talk to them. Let's see what they're doing. You know, that's how you learn. I'm all about it, you know. So one of my favorite stories is Ben Crenshaw. And I think you'll like this because you talk about putting with freedom. So Grant is sitting on his bag having a protein bar, and we look up and there's Ben Crenshaw with this kind of long flowing wristy stroke, hitting this ball from 80 feet from one side of the green to the other to nowhere. I mean, literally there's no cup. And Grant goes, what is he doing? You know, like, what is that? This guy's one of the greatest putters ever. What is that? And I said, let's ask him. And Grant said, okay. And he stands up, and I was like, oh, we're really going to ask him. You know, so I'm going to be right there, a fly on the wall, and listen, right? So I followed Grant, and Grant says, hey, what are you doing? And this was Ben Crenshaw's answer, and I thought it was brilliant. He said, well, I putt my best when I putt to nowhere. And I thought, okay, I'm not sure what he means by that. And so then he said, what I really like to do is I like to just hit my ball to nowhere, and I like to practice watching the ball roll. And he said, I get the greatest feedback when I'm not attached to a result. So when I putt to nowhere, I really kind of see how the ball rolls, how it rolls out, how it curves. Instead of if I'm putting to a cup, now I'm like, I pulled it, it broke enough. I'm adding all kinds of stuff that doesn't need to be there. So I thought that was a brilliant way to practice, you know, from one of the greatest players, putters in history, is that when he putts to nowhere, he gets honest feedback, and he's not judging himself. He's just letting the ball be his teacher. And I think that's really how Bubba was such a great ball striker every day, in that Bubba never tried to hit the ball. He never tried to be orthodox, like line his feet up here, parallel to the target, line his shoulders up, his hips, his feet, his knees, and swing and hit it down the target line. He would literally show up and go, same thing that Sam Snead did. Oh, today I'm slicing it, so I'll just aim to the right more. Man, I'm hitting it straighter, I'll just aim straighter. And that was how he played. And that's why he was good at ball striking every single day. And I think that's why Ben Crenshaw was great at putting, because he never judged Ben. He just let the results teach him where to aim it, you know? And I'll say it like, can you imagine Lee Trevino trying to aim parallel? You'd have never heard of him. But when Lee Trevino learned how to play, every time he looked up, the ball was going 20 yards to the right. And so he just instinctively learned, well, if I aim left, then the ball goes to where I want it to end up. And that's the feedback part. That's the childlike behavior that Dr. Bull talks about, right? Yeah. Being a childlike, that to me, the greatest players of any sport, especially golf, the greatest players, maybe not the best technique, but the guys who get the most out of their game are the ones that have that Ben Crenshaw approach. Like, let me remove me from the situation, and then I truly can experience learning. But when you're so focused on you, you start to struggle. So if you're shooting a basketball as a kid, a 5-year-old, and imagine if we treated ourselves like golfers do. I'm a 5-year-old kid. I learned how to hold the basketball, support it, and put my hand in the cookie jar. And I got good form. And when I come up short, I go, you looked up. And then the next one, I shoot it too far, and I go, come on, flexion, more flexion. And then the next one, I'm like, come on, transfer your weight. And then the next one, I'm like, come on, rotate. If I did that in basketball,
you've got to get shallow the shaft in there.
That's right. If I did that exactly, you would never be good at basketball, right? So what does a little kid do? A 5-year-old kid is not good at basketball, even with good form. But all they do is shoot, and they don't worry about them. They just shoot, and they go, oh, that was long. And they just observe. And then they shoot, and they go, oh, that was short, or that was left, that was right. And eventually their brain starts to narrow the miss until they become a world-class. The more they do it, the better they get at it. But as golfers, we get so focused on us that we forget what's the end goal. What is the right way to do it? So I love the freedom thing that Ben said. I think it's one of the most brilliant things for putting, especially because, think about how simple is it to do this, right? I mean, any beginner, you could go clap your hands together, put it on a club, and go like this. I mean, it's not a difficult technical stroke, but putting is very difficult because speed and read and all that stuff matters, right? So the more we can get focused on feedback, the easier that becomes. to free it up and trust our instincts versus trying to control it with our hands, you know, and be like mechanical, you know. So I'm a big feel type putter. I think those are the best putters. You know, the mechanics are never that great. The guy with all the gadgets on the putting green is usually not very good at putting.
True, isn't it? True. So many great little nuggets there, Ted. And I'm just buzzing. That conversation was class. Really, really enjoyed and appreciate your time on a match day. You know, he's heading to the course now to do his stuff. So I'll be watching tonight, seeing how you get on.
Awesome.
I wonder if you can, like, I don't know. I don't know. I was trying to think of a way that, like, on the third hole, you just sort of put your thumb up and it'd be like, to me, do you know what I mean? But no, anyway, maybe not. But maybe we'll see when you're over in the UK in the summer's time.
Absolutely. Please say hello. That'd be great. I'd love it.
Love it. Great stuff. Have a good day. Thanks, Ted.
All right. Thanks, Ollie. See you, buddy.
Appreciate it.